We're really glad that you have all carved out some time today. And we know your schedules are really, really busy, depending what time it is in your province, but we're really excited that you're able to join us today. So this is our two-part series on supporting families. And this session is titled Beyond Grades, Helping Your Teen Build Clarity and Confidence. And we all know that grades are a part of the journey, but today we're here to talk about something much deeper. We're here to help you today and help your students understand who they are so they can navigate their future with a sense of purpose. And today I'm going to be collaborating. My name is Victoria from My Blueprint, and we have a special partnership today with Tasneem Damji, the creator of the College Clarity Method. So we're very excited to have her here with us today. And together we're going to show you how you can combine powerful self-reflection with practical tools to help your teen really find their way on their journey. All right, so a few housekeeping notes before we get started. We are recording our session today. When we send our follow-up email today, you'll get that recording of the session. So if anything comes up during the session today, you can feel free to leave and you'll get that recording as well. We have all of your emails, so we'll be able to forward that to you to catch up later. We'll also be sharing it with families who were unable to attend. If you have any questions at all, please ask them throughout the Q&A function at any time. As they pop into your head, feel free to write them down, and Tasneem and I will address all of the Q&A questions there at the end of our session today. So we've dedicated a good amount of time at the end of our session to support you with all your questions. And we're going to be sharing quite a few resources today as well. And don't worry about keeping track of where to find these resources. They're all going to be sent to you in a follow-up email, probably tomorrow, with all of those resources ready for you to get started. All right, so getting into our agenda and what we are going to cover today. So we'll start with some introductions to myself and Tasneem. And then Tasneem will walk you through the college clarity method. So really, it's a really clear three-step process that really helps your teens moving from feeling pressured to feeling clear. And then we'll show you some My Blueprint connections. So I'll show you how those insights translate directly into the My Blueprint platform that your students have access to. We'll jump right into a student account demo. And then finally, we'll wrap up with some Q&A, and we'll also support with some login instructions for your students. If you're unsure how your students log into My Blueprint, we'll support you with that as well. Okay, getting into some introductions. So I'll introduce myself. My name is Victoria Berkovitz. I'm an education services specialist here at My Blueprint. My background is really deeply rooted in education. I've spent over 4 years in the classroom as a teacher in the Toronto District School Board in Ontario. And I've always loved supporting students and empowering them and making sure that they're able to access success. So I'm really excited to be here with you today and supporting your students on their journey. I will pass it on over to Tasneem now.
Thank you, Victoria. Welcome, everyone. I'm really glad that you're here. Um, if you're here today, there's a good chance that you are carrying some version of this question in the background of family life right now. How do I help my teen move forward? Or, sorry, how do I help my teen move toward their future without turning every conversation into pressure, stress, or a debate about what they should do next? Um, for so many parents, this season feels high stakes. You want to support your teen well. You want them to make thoughtful choices. You want to keep options open. And at the same time, you may be noticing that the more important this feels for you, the harder it can be to know how to help without overstepping, creating anxiety, or pushing too soon. And that's exactly why this conversation matters. In my work with students and families, I've seen that teens who move forward with the most confidence are not always the ones with the highest grades or the most polished resumes. They're often the ones who understand themselves. They understand their strengths, their interests, how they're wired, and what kind of path actually fits them. And so before we go further, I want to quickly share why I care so deeply about this work. And I'm not coming to you only as an educator and coach. I'm also a mom of a grade 12 student. So I understand personally how emotional and important this season can be for families. I know what it feels like to want to guide well, while also knowing that ultimately this is your child's life and their future. For over 10 years, I've worked with teens and families around the world, helping them navigate big questions around post-secondary choices, career direction, and identity with more clarity and confidence. And I've also read applications for UBC and served on a number of scholarship committees. So I know firsthand what helps students stand out, but also where bright, capable students get stuck. And so, what I've learned is this: success does not begin with choosing the right school or building the perfect college application. It begins earlier by helping a teen understand who they are, what makes them unique, and how to make decisions from that place. So that's why this conversation with my blueprint feels like such a natural fit. We both care deeply about helping students make thoughtful, intentional decisions about their future. Not rushed ones, not fear-based ones, but decisions grounded in self-understanding. So can we go on to the next slide? So today, I want to give you a simple framework that you can start using right away. I call it the college clarity method, and it's a three-step process that helps parents move their teen from pressure and uncertainty towards greater clarity and confidence. And I want to say this up front. The goal here is not to have one perfect conversation that suddenly makes your teen feel certain about their future. Most families are hoping for a breakthrough moment, and one conversation where everything clicks. But in reality, clarity is usually built more gradually than that. It happens when teens start noticing more about themselves. It happens when teens begin reflecting on what matters to them. And it happens when they can connect who they are to what might come next. So today is really about helping you see how to create some of those moments or more of those moments. And by the end of the webinar, my hope is that you'll leave with a calmer, more useful way to support your teen. One that helps them build self-awareness, direction, and confidence over time instead of more pressure. And in the middle of the webinar, I'll be sharing a practical tool that you can use with your teen right away. We'll go to the next slide. So here's what I see so often with teens. Many of them are working hard. They're capable, they're busy, and from the outside, they may even look like they're doing fine. But underneath that, many of them are carrying a lot of uncertainty. They know they're supposed to be thinking about their future. They hear questions about programs, careers, applications, grades, and next steps. But many of them don't yet have the self-understanding to answer those questions with confidence. So what happens? They can start to feel pressure to choose before they really know how to choose. They may be overwhelmed with options, and they may shut down, avoid the conversation, or say, I don't know. Not because they don't care, but because they genuinely don't yet have the language for what fits. And for parents, that can be confusing because from the outside, your teen may look responsible, capable, and on track. But internally, they may feel unclear, disconnected, or afraid of making the wrong choice. So often, the issue is not a lack of ability, it's a lack of self-understanding. And that's such an important distinction because when confidence is built only on performance, grades, achievements, check boxes, then every future decision can feel heavier than it needs to be. But when confidence starts to come from self-awareness, teens are much better able to explore options, make decisions, and move forward with ownership. That's the shift we're going to talk about today. So we'll go into the next slide. Let me make this real with a student I worked with. Her name was Chloe. On paper, Chloe looked like she was doing everything right. She was a strong student, taking the right courses, staying responsible, keeping up with expectations, From the outside, she looked like a teenager who was on track. But underneath that, she felt overwhelmed. She didn't have a clear sense of how her strengths connected to her future. She didn't really know how to interpret what she was good at, what it meant, or how that translated into possible next steps. So even though she was checking all the boxes, she didn't actually feel confident. And that's something I really want to pause on because I think many parents will recognize this. A teen can look fine from the outside. They can be functioning, they can be achieving, they can be busy all the time and still feel deeply unsure inside. Chloe was worried about making the wrong choice. And when students feel that way, even small decisions start to feel heavy. Motivation drops, confidence becomes fragile, everything feels more loaded than it needs to be. So the problem wasn't that she lacked ability. The problem was that she lacked clarity. She needed help understanding herself before she could make aligned decisions about what came next. And that is exactly why this work matters. Before a student can confidently choose a program, a path, or even what to explore next, they need language for who they are, what makes them unique, and what direction might actually fit. So that's the framework. That's what this framework is designed to support. And exactly why I created a guide that I will share in a little while to help parents put what we're discussing in the webinar into practice right away. So we'll go into the first slide that starts talking about this framework. And the first step in the framework is called C. And this step is so important because many teens are being evaluated all the time by grades, performance, deadlines, and outcomes. But they are not often being helped to really see themselves. In this stage, we help teens begin noticing strengths that may not show up on a report card. We get curious about what naturally drives them, or what naturally draws them in, what energizes them, what comes more easily to them, what they care about, what they keep coming back to, even when nobody is making them do it. Because those things matter. As parents, it can be easy to focus on what needs improvement or what feels urgent. But this step asks us to slow down and notice what is already true about our teen. Where do they come alive? What patterns are we seeing? What interests are more than just a phase? What strengths are showing up outside of the classroom? This is not about putting pressure on them to define themselves too early. It's about paying closer attention. Because when a teen starts to feel seen for more than just performance, that opens the door to a very different kind of confidence. And parents can play a huge role here, often not by having the perfect answer, but simply by noticing and naming what they're already observing. So let's look at step two, which is called reflect. So if the first step, C, is about noticing what's there, reflect is about helping teens make meaning out of it. Because confidence doesn't grow just from doing things. It grows when teens begin to understand themselves through what they've done. This is where self-awareness starts to deepen. When a teen can begin to notice not just, I like that, but why did I like that? Or not just, I was good at that, but what strength was I using there? Not just that mattered to me, but what does that tell me about what I value? That kind of reflection is where real clarity begins. And this is an area where parents have an enormous impact. Not by interrogating, not by trying to force an answer, but by asking thoughtful questions that help teens connect the dots between their experiences, their interests, and the way they naturally move through the world. Because often teens have more insight than they realize. They just have not yet had the space or language to articulate it. Reflection helps turn those scattered experiences into self-knowledge. And once that self-knowledge starts to grow, future decisions become less overwhelming because they are no longer coming from pressure. They are starting to come from a clearer sense of self. And once a teen starts to build that kind of self-knowledge, the next step becomes much easier, not because they suddenly have all the answers, but because now they have something to build from. And that's where the third step comes in, and that's called design. Once teens begin to notice their strengths and reflect on what matters to them, they're in a much better position to start exploring possibilities that actually fit. And I want to be clear here, design is not about forcing a final answer too early. It's not about saying, you like this, so you should become that. It's not about locking a teen into one direction. And it's not about expecting certainty before they're ready. Design is about helping teens move from vague possibility to more intentional exploration. It's about narrowing options, testing ideas, and looking at what environments, programs, or pathways might align with who they are becoming. Because direction grows when students can start connecting their self understanding to real world possibilities. And that shift matters so much. When a teen is only looking at options from the outside, what sounds impressive, what other people are doing, what seems safe, the process can feel overwhelming and disconnected. But when they start exploring from the inside out, from strengths, from interests, and fit, the process becomes much more grounded. And that's what design is really about. Not choosing the whole future at once, but creating a thoughtful next step that feels aligned enough to explore. And so the guide I will share later on is a simple next step to start better conversations at home. So we'll go to the next slide. I want to show you what this framework can actually look like in real life. And for me, this has shown up not only in my work with students and families, but also in my own home with my son, Kimran. Let me show you what this looked like through the first step, C. What I began noticing was how alive he became in the outdoors. He loves camping, hiking, and backcountry trips. And what stood out to me was that this was not just a casual interest or something he enjoyed doing once in a while. This was one of those areas where I could see real energy. He didn't need pushing, he didn't need reminding. He naturally wanted to prepare, plan, and be a part of it. And that matters because as parents, those are the kinds of clues we want to pay attention to. When our teens consistently light up around something, when they show initiative without being managed, when they bring energy to an experience on their own, that often tells us there is something deeper there worth noticing. So, in this step, I was not trying to interpret everything too quickly or turn it into a career answer. I was simply paying attention. I was noticing where his energy was, what seemed to come naturally, what kept drawing him in. And that kind of noticing is often where clarity begins. And then comes reflect. As I paid closer attention, I realized I was not only seeing a love of the outdoors, I was also seeing strengths underneath that interest. I was seeing initiative. I was seeing planning and preparation. I was seeing leadership. And I was seeing a real appetite for challenge and adventure. In other words, the interest itself was important, but even more important was what that interest was revealing about who he is and how he naturally operates. And this is such a powerful shift for parents because Often we stop at the surface. My teen likes this. My teen is good at that. They seem interested in this area. But reflection helps us go deeper. It invites us to ask, what strength is showing up here? What preference is showing up here? What kind of environment brings out the best in them? What does this tell us about how they're wired? This is where interests start becoming meaningful. They stop being random facts about our teen and they start becoming clues about fit, motivation, and direction. And when parents can help a teen reflect in that way, we're giving them something incredibly valuable, language for themselves. And then we move into design. Once I had a clearer picture of what these interests and strengths might be pointing to, the next question was not, so this means you should become this. That's such an important distinction. The goal was not to decide his future for him. The goal was to ask what possibilities could we explore from here? So we started looking at real opportunities to connect it to what we were noticing. That included volunteering at the Richmond Nature Park, taking an outdoor education course at school, and exploring post-secondary programs related to these interests. Things like geography, forest and natural resources management, and environmental studies. And that is really the heart of this step. We're not trying to force certainty. We're not trying to prematurely narrow a teen into one answer. We are opening pathways. We're helping them connect who they are to what might come next. And that's what makes exploration feel more grounded and less overwhelming. And I think that's what many parents need to hear. Clarity does not come from pressuring a teen to pick the right path as quickly as possible. It comes from noticing the clues, making meaning out of them, and then exploring options that are rooted in who they are. That is a much healthier and more sustainable way to build direction. Now, when parents hear this framework, a very natural question is, well, this makes sense, but what does it actually look like in everyday life? Because most of these conversations don't happen in ideal, planned moments. They happen in the middle of regular life. And that's where I want to go next. So we'll look at the next slide. Now, here's what I've noticed, both professionally and personally. These kinds of conversations usually do not happen in formal sit-down moments. They usually do not happen when we say, okay, let's have a serious talk about your future. More often, they happen side by side, in the car, on the way to practice, running errands, during these short in-between moments when there's less pressure, less intensity, and often less eye contact. And for many teens, that matters. Those are often the moments when they're most willing to think out loud, when they're a little less guarded, when they'll answer a question they might shut down in response to at the dinner table. That's why I encourage parents to stop waiting for the perfect conversation. You do not need a formal future planning talk. You need better small moments. Because over time, those smaller, low pressure conversations can reveal a lot. How your teen thinks, what energizes them, what they notice about themselves, and what kinds of possibilities they may be starting to imagine. And that is often where clarity begins. So we'll go to the next slide. So instead of asking the dreaded question for all students and all parents, how was school? Which often goes nowhere, we can ask questions that invite reflection. Questions that help teens notice something about themselves. For the C stage, you might ask something like, what part of your day felt easiest? or most natural? For reflect, you might ask, what kind of problems do you actually enjoy solving? And for design, you might ask, if you could spend a week learning more about anything, what would it be? Now, these are really simple questions, but they open very different kinds of conversations. They help shift the focus away from performance and towards self-awareness. And that shift can tell us so much more about what a teen may need, value, or be ready to explore. Sometimes these conversations do not lead to an immediate career answer, and that is okay. Sometimes they reveal something just as important. I was recently talking with my son, Kimran, in the car about his capstone project. For those who may not be familiar, capstone is a longer-term independent project students complete in grade 12 in BC. His project is about reinvigorating his school's Instagram sports page to help create more community, drawing on his years of playing soccer at a high level. And what stood out to me in that conversation was that he said this was the kind of project that could not really be done well alone. It needed different skill sets, marketing, communication, design, and more. And what I heard in that moment was not just a comment about the project. I heard growing self-awareness. He was recognizing that collaboration matters to him, that different strengths matter, that good work often happens in teams. And those are exactly the kinds of insights we want to listen for when we have these conversations. Because that is how teens begin to build language for how they work, what matters to them, and what kinds of environments may fit them well. And because I know it can be hard to think of these kinds of questions in the moment, I created a car conversations guide with simple, thoughtful prompts that you can use in everyday moments with your teen, especially if you want to support them without making every conversation feel heavy or high pressure. If that would be helpful for your family, you can scan the QR code on the slide and I'll send it to you after the webinar. This is for parents whose teens are unsure of what comes next. This is for families trying to have better conversations without conflict or pressure. And this is for those who want to start earlier and be more intentional. So grab this code. I know it'll also be in the post webinar email, but you can scan this code right now to get this guide. And then let's go to the next slide. So this is the big idea I want to leave you with. Our job as parents is not to choose the path for our teens. Our job is to help them understand themselves well enough that they can begin to choose their path with more confidence. That is a very different role. It means we are not trying to hand them certainty. We are helping them build the self-awareness that makes confidence possible. Because confidence is not the same, is not something that we can give our teens through reassurance alone. Real confidence grows when they begin to see their own strengths more clearly, recognize their own patterns, and trust themselves a little more with each conversation, reflection, and next step. And the good news is, this does not require you to have all the answers. It requires curiosity, it requires noticing, and it requires creating the kinds of conversations that help your teen hear themselves more clearly. And that is where direction starts to take shape. So let's go to the next slide. If today's conversation has sparked something for you, even a small shift in how you see your teen, then this has already done something important. Because once a parent starts to notice their teen differently, the conversations start to change. And when the conversations change, the path forward often starts to become clearer. What we've talked about today is really the foundation. How to help your teen notice strengths, reflect more deeply, and begin building direction from the inside out. And now the next question becomes, once your teen is starting to notice more about themselves, how do you help them capture that and build on it in a practical way? And that's where tools can be incredibly helpful. And so I'm really glad to now hand things over to Victoria from My Blueprint, who is going to show you how the goal setting tool can support reflections, guide conversations, and help students begin taking intentional next steps. On to you,
Awesome.
Victoria.
Thank you so much, Tasneem. All right. Wow, that was such fabulous learning about that framework. And now we're going to get into what this looks like in my blueprint and some tools that your students already have access to. And you can log in with them and take a look at how these tools can support you in bringing Tasneem's framework to life. So I'm going to hop on over here and give a little bit of an introduction to my blueprint. So at my blueprint, really our core goal is to empower every student to thrive and succeed in career education and life. And we know that success looks different for everyone, which is why we really have the resources to help students navigate not just their current education, but future education in their lives as a whole as well. So we really want to make sure that when your teen makes a choice about their future, they're understanding and doing so with confidence that really comes from deep self-understanding. So, with my blueprint, what are some of the pieces there that help bring our mission to life for your family? So, the first piece there on my blueprint is students are able to make connections. So, where I'm going to show you today how we can help your student bridge the gap and make connections between what they're learning, their personal interests, and future possibilities. I'll also show you how students can explore different pathways. We know that oftentimes students may be getting stuck thinking about those same top 10 traditional jobs, and my blueprint really encourages them to broaden their horizons and explore diverse pathways connected to their interests that they may have never even considered yet. And through my blueprint as well, students can document their growth. So it's not just about grades. Students can document their experiences, they can make connections to their skills and their personal growth along the way. We also offer lots of personalized resources for you. So at the end of our session today, we have some custom family guides and student getting started guides that are personalized for you and how you can support your students with my blueprint at home. So I'm going to hop right into our student account now. And we are going to get started in showing you what this looks like. So, I'm sure some of you are familiar with my blueprint, and if some of you are not, this is exactly what your students are going to see when they log into the platform. So, towards the end of our session today, we'll give you some information. If you're unsure how your teens log in, we'll give you that information towards the end today. But really, what I'll be showing you when we're going through my blueprint today, is for you to be able to have your student log in at home, and then you can take a look at their account with them and move through some of these different tools in our account today that will support them with self-awareness and exploration. So all of this is done in the student account. And I'll note here as well that the students' teachers, your teen's teachers, don't need to set anything up for them to access this. So when your teens log into my blueprint, all of this is here and available for them. Their teachers don't need to set any of this up. They have access to all of these tools already, which is really great and makes it really easy for you at home as well. So we're going to start today with going in the exact framework that Tasneem taught us just earlier in our session. So we're going to start with step one, which is C, noticing strengths. So Tasneem talked a lot about breaking the silence around strengths and noticing those unique energies that don't always show up on a report card. So if we click into our Who Am I section on the left-hand side over here, this is an amazing section over here that can support your students. So the Who Am I surveys over here are a collection of 5 core surveys that help your students learn about their learning styles, their interests, their knowledge, and their motivation as well. So when they complete these surveys, there's no right or wrong answers. It just provides students with a little bit more understanding to themselves. So when they open up these surveys, my student already here has already completed them as this is my demo student account. But in your students' accounts, they'll open it up if they haven't completed these yet, and it will say start survey, and they can start to engage in a variety of different engaging questions to help them learn about themselves. So I'm going to highlight one survey today that might be helpful for you to have your students do right away, and that's our interest survey. So helping our students learn a lot about what interests them. So if I click on my report over here, I can see that my interest type is called the mentor. And if I scroll down over here, it gives me a little bit more information about myself. So it's showing me that I like to teach and help others. I might be social and persuasive, and I like to share my skills and resources. So this is a really great way to have your student, if they've already maybe done these surveys at school before, or maybe you're having them do them for the first time, they can do these surveys, and then maybe when you're in the car, you can have those conversations about their survey here. So, if we're thinking about step number two, reflect and building self-awareness, we want to help our teens really build confidence by notice not just what they're doing, but really what it means to them. So, for example, if we're looking at this report, you can notice and notice to your student that it says you like to teach and help others, and you can have them reflect. Does this feel like you? Or why do you think you prefer a mix of routine and variety? So, asking them how, if that gives them examples of how they like to approach things, you could maybe point out examples of how you've noticed that they show these different pieces here, or if they agree or disagree as well. So, it gives them a lot of great information about themselves. So I definitely encourage you to check out these different surveys with your student in their My Blueprint accounts. And something I'll note here as well, we're going to move on to our next step of design and creating that direction. So once students complete all 5 of their surveys here, so they complete their learning styles, personality, interests, knowledge, and motivation survey, they'll actually unlock an area over here called match results. And this is a really powerful area for students because it takes into account all of the answers that they've given to those surveys, and it gives them a custom list of occupations, post-secondary pathways, as well as course matches. So this can be a really great way and really empowering for students who are feeling a little bit unsure to see, wow, based on everything that I'm interested in and what I like to learn about, there's a lot of different opportunities out here for me, and I want to take a look at these and see if they really connect to what I feel about myself. So today we're going to focus on our occupation matches. And I noted earlier that my blueprint really helps students broaden their horizons and learning about different careers. So if you have your students looking at their occupation matches, something I encourage you to ask them is, are you noticing any occupations here that perhaps you've never heard of before? Maybe some of them they're familiar with. They think, oh, yeah, this is something I would be interested in. I've thought about this before. I've heard of this career. But you can also have your student think about, oh, a geological technician. I've never heard of this career before, and I had no idea this would be connected to myself and my interests. I want to explore this one even further. So, really great question to ask your teens there when you're looking at these surveys or these occupations, sorry. I'll click into one of these and show you some of the great information that students can get. So if I click into arborist over here, it's going to pull up the occupation profile for my student. So I'm going to get information here about what an arborist does. I'll also get some great labor market information as well. So on the right-hand side over here, you'll see that I have the job outlook as well as the estimated salary. And all of this information is pulled from Stats Canada. So if you're in BC and your students are opening up these accounts, the information is going to be BC specific. If you're in Ontario, the information your students are seeing are going to be Ontario specific. So really great information that's constantly updated to make sure it's as accurate as possible for you and your students. Something I love here as well is it'll give you and your student a snapshot of what pathway might be required to pursue this occupation. So we can see here that a college level education may be required for my student to pursue a career as an arborist. Scrolling down on our occupation even more, we'll get some great videos. And this is a really great way for students to get insight into what the day-to-day life of this job looks like. However, my favorite area here of every single occupation is our important skills. So this is really, really essential for conversation and really a gold mine for conversation. So you can take a look at the skills that are listed for these different occupations and start to make connections between helping your students see, wow, this job here, an arborist requires physical stamina. You can learn about how an arborist may need to use that skill, and then maybe point out that skill in your own student. So this job says it needs physical stamina, and I saw you use that exact skill when we went on our hiking trip last summer. So this is really great and can be really empowering for students because these skills aren't skills that they've never heard of. These might be common skills that they're developing at home with you, they're developing at school, and maybe in their extracurriculars. So it can be really empowering for students to see that the skills that they're already developing now in their teen years are being used by people working in real careers. So they're already making the steps, taking those steps that they need to those future possibilities there. So I really encourage you to check out that important skills section because it really is a gold mine for conversation there and also validating and empowering your students that they have those skills and are currently developing them. All right, so I'm going to go back over here out of this occupation. And what I'll note here as well is you'll notice that there's a few different buttons here that are saying get started. So what these get started buttons mean is they are connected to something called a compatibility survey. So this is a really great reality check for students to check their understanding on different jobs and really learn about the day-to-day tasks that someone does. So if I click Get Started for an arborist, I'm going to be presented with 10 questions or 10 statements, and it's going to give me the top 10 tasks that someone in that job does every day. And your teen has to rank if they actually want to do that task. So would they like to clean, sharpen, and lubricate tools and equipment? Strongly agree or strongly disagree. So this is really great because it really gives them a clear understanding of what these occupations look like in real life. You can have conversations with your students too and have those conversations of, was an arborist what you expected? Was there a task in that job that maybe you had never considered before but really excites you? And that can boost conversation even more as well. So if students are thinking, yeah, I would love to work with tools, this is something that I actually think I really would like to do, maybe thinking about other careers that involve tools as well. So you can always make connections between different careers and these tasks there. So as our students complete those surveys over there, they will actually be given a percentage match over here. That can be a great source of conversation as well, depending on how they answer the questions there, we'll give them a bit of a match. And something I'll note here as well, it doesn't have to be a 100% match. It's just one piece of the conversation for students when thinking about those different careers and those different possibilities. All right. So to wrap up now and thinking more about that design piece as well, I'm going to show you the goal setting feature in my blueprint. So we really want to help turn these conversations into an action plan, and that's where goal setting can really come in. So if students were to select home and then goals on the left-hand side over here, they are able to set goals in their account. So my student has already set a variety of different goals, but I'm going to show you today how they can create a new goal, a brand new goal, and it's really structured for them. So if we remember Tasneem's, one of her car conversation questions was, if you could spend a week learning anything, what would it be? Here would be a great place for your student to set a SMART goal, working towards what they would like to learn about. So, for example, if you have your teen and they say they want to learn about nature conservation or outdoor education, you can help them set a SMART goal to achieve that. So if I select this Add Goal button over here, my student is able to add a goal in my blueprint. So I'm going to say this is a personal goal, and I can type my main goal in here. So I've pre-typed these up on the side, so it's easy for me to paste them in there, but it's going to be very easy for you students to go and type in. So my main personal goal is that by next Friday, I want to find one opportunity at a volunteer opportunity at a local park or watch one video about a career related to outdoor education. So I'm going to paste that in there. And I'm going to do it by next Friday. This is something I want to work on kind of right away. So I'm going to select 0 to 6 months as my time frame. And this is really great. So if you're setting more long-term goals with your students as well, it's really helpful to think about how long it's going to take them to achieve that goal and you supporting them with that as well. So I'm going to select Add Tasks, and this is where I can create some achievable subtasks for my student to work towards that goal. So if I select here, my first subtask is I'm going to log into my blueprint, go to the work tab, and I'm going to search for careers related to the outdoors. That is going to be my first task. So I'm going to put that in there as my first task. I'm going to add another task, And my next task is going to be I want to visit a local organization's website for student volunteer postings on nature education. I'm going to add one more task. And the last one I want to do is for one of the careers I found, I'm going to complete the compatibility survey to see if the reality of the job matches my interest. So I created my main goal over here. I've set my time frame and I've added my three subtasks there. I'm going to select add goal. And now I can see that goal here for my team right in their account. So my student can easily check these off as they complete them. And if they want to edit them as they go along, they can do that as well. So very customizable for them. All right. So this does wrap up what I'm going to be showing in our My Blueprint account today. Just some few quick ideas that you can do with your students when they're at home. Have them log in, explore those Who Am I surveys to take a look and see and learn about themselves, especially if they're not really sure what they're interested in. Then you can go ahead and take a look at those early career matches and see what they may be thinking about those and connect that to their skills, and then maybe setting a goal after that as well. All right, I'm going to hop back over to our slide deck over here. And I'm going to share with you some of the resources that you are going to receive at the end of our set or in our follow-up email. So I'll hop right to number two right away, and that was Tasneem's car conversations guide. That's going to be extremely helpful for you in supporting those conversations at home and in the car as well. And in terms of specific My Blueprint resources, we actually have a brand new My Blueprint family guide that's going to help you learn about all of the different features in relation to My Blueprint. Some of them we haven't been able to cover today, but some of them you can take a look at in the guide, and hopefully it will help you learn about those as well. We also have a family video series. So this is a series of three quick videos that you can watch with your teen at home or watch on your own to learn a little bit more about My Blueprint or get a refresher, maybe what we've covered today. And we also have a getting started guide for students. So if your teens at home or are brand new to My Blueprint, this could be a great start for them to learn about My Blueprint as well. So all of these resources are going to be coming to you in our follow-up email. All right, I will get into login instructions very briefly here for you and your students. So if your teens are in high school, they may be very familiar with My Blueprint and using it all the time, and they may have certain ways that they log in for their schools. Some schools have it on a landing page. Some schools have it embedded within their school website. So the best way to ask how your teens log in is to ask your teen, and I'm sure they will know how to log into My Blueprint. But if your teens are unsure, you can have them visit myblueprint.ca and then select login. And then once they do that, they can select school account login and select their school board or their district, and then log in with their school board or district email and password. And if you're there and you're not seeing your students' school or district, that would mean that your school uses an activation key. And if your teen is unsure what that is or they're unsure what their password is, you can always send an email to your school directly. In high school, the guidance counselor would be the best person to reach out to, and they would have the information and that specific login information for your students. All right. So we do have a survey as well that we would love to hear your feedback on our session today. We do have this webinar is a two-part series. So on May 7th, we are having the second part of our session today, which is going to help you connect all of the self-exploration to post-secondary decisions towards those end years in high school, grade 11 and grade 12. And we would love to have you join that session as well. We are going to start our Q&A now, but feel free while we're going through and we're answering everyone's questions. Feel free to scan this survey and fill out those quick questions there, and we'd really appreciate your feedback. But I think, Tasneem, if you're ready to go, we can start our Q&A if that works.
Yeah, we've actually got some really good questions that I think both of us can answer. I
Yes.
can start off
Sure.
with one of the questions, and they might have been answered as the webinar went on, but I want to bring them up because they're all really common questions that parents are thinking. And so, one is, what if there's no one thing that my teen is fond of? And I think, if you think about yourself, you're probably interested in many things. And we're not necessarily asking for your teen to be involved or interested or fond of just one thing, but pick one thing that they do that UC lights them up that, they might think is just a hobby, but actually they're learning a lot of really important skills that can be transferable, for example. So I gave the example of my son in the outdoors, but he has many other interests as well. I just picked that as an example. As I mentioned, he plays soccer. He likes to cook. I think where parents struggle is we're trying to make, we're trying to find that one interest or that interest that connects to a career. And I totally get that. I'm a parent as well. I get that urge to do that. But I think what is really important is that you don't think too far ahead like that. I think what's important is to notice, what are the things that they enjoy doing. If we start thinking about careers right away, we often start boxing them in or thinking that, they've got to pick a traditional career. But I would just say watch them. These tools, oh my God, I wish I had my blueprint when I was younger. I wish I had also known about it so I could help my son through this process because I think those surveys, especially the interest survey, is a great place with interactive questions that you can, if you're struggling to find that one thing, and the same parent asked, what if I can't see any of that? What if for the see part of the framework, I can't see anything? Maybe it's doing the interest survey in the Who Am I survey in my blueprint because it might help with some questions that you might have not thought about. And then asking some of the car conversation questions, I think just asking the questions sometimes I know I am guilty of this. We think that we know what our teens are interested in or where they want what they want to do, but if we don't actually ask them, we don't really know. I remember actually I thought my son wanted to play soccer at like a college level and maybe professionally. And I asked him, and he was like, no, I love soccer, but I want to continue enjoying it. I don't want to play it professionally or at a professional level. But if I hadn't asked him and I thought I knew him really well, I wouldn't have known. So, to recap, there doesn't just have to be one thing that they're fond of. Um, Try to just notice without thinking about careers and ask them. Ask them some questions about it. What do you like about it? I noticed, this phrase, I noticed that you really enjoyed doing this project. Tell me about it. Right? So having those kinds of conversations. Um, Victoria, do you want to pick there is another
Yeah.
question I want to answer, but I'll let you take my blueprint question.
That's great. We can go back and forth there. I see one question has been asked multiple times, which is an excellent question. So I see multiple people here have asked if students have completed these surveys in grade 9 or if they've done them before, can they redo them to get new results in later years? And yes, they can. So I'll just briefly pop into my blueprint here and just quickly show you where students can do that. So if I go into the Who Am I surveys here, you will notice there's this little restart button here. So on my blueprint, we actually encourage students to redo these surveys every year as well. We know our students' interests are constantly changing in what they're learning about and what they like to learn about. So we really actually recommend students to redo these surveys. So if you have your students at home, select restart and then restart survey here. It will just restart the survey for them and they can do it again there. So really easy for them to go ahead and do that there. I'll hop back over to our slides here and I'll just mark those ones as answered. All right, I see there's one more, my blueprint one. Did you want to go Tasneem, or did you want me to go ahead and do one more in my blueprint one?
Yeah, I'd like to answer a couple of questions, but why don't
Sure.
you do my blueprint and then I'll answer the other questions.
Okay, great. I see there's one more here. Is it possible to have a step-by-step guide of the most important highlights so I can try inspire my grade 10 teen to explore my blueprint more efficiently? That's a great question. That's really awesome that you want to be more involved with my blueprint and supporting your teen at home. Yes, so we do have that family guide that I'm going to be sending you in our follow-up email. It actually has page by page activities and ideas for you to do within my blueprint. So it'll give you some discussion question ideas. It'll teach you about every feature. So you can pull that up in your email and look at that PDF and find some ideas for how you can inspire your student to use some of those features there. I see here in your question as well, you're also asking, I'd love to see my blueprint being explored in school. I never heard my son talking about it. Yeah, so students typically will use it maybe in a career education class or with their guidance counselors as well. And I see you have here, please create more parent learning opportunities. Yes, that's something that we're actively working on as well. So we will have our second part. So definitely join on May 7th to learn a little bit more about my blueprint as well. But thank you for answering that or asking that. All right, Tasneem, I'll pass it back to you.
Yeah, it is really nice to see parents so engaged and actually wanting to help their teens navigate this. I know the teen years can be quite difficult for teenagers and parents, and to see that, you know, parenting is still happening when they're teenagers. It's just a different kind of parenting. So I love that all of you are wanting to help your teens with this. There's a question here. What if I'm a parent that is concerned that some careers may be obsolete due to AI? So this is a real question. This is a real concern. This is a real question in all walks of life. AI is here. AI is here to stay, and AI is something that can help us in all kinds of careers. I use AI all the time. It helps me be more efficient in my job. It helps me learn things that I don't know in my, as a business owner, I have to wear multiple hats, and AI really does help me. I think what's really important is that and we will never know everything about AI because it will be constantly changing. I think what is important when you're thinking about careers for your children and what careers will be obsolete due to AI. Um, I think what is really important is that they pick careers that have a human element to it. Okay. And with that, AI cannot replace those human elements of interaction. And so I know it's not a definitive answer because AI is just constantly changing, and even I don't know where that's going to land. But for example, for myself, I am a coach, and I support students in applying to post-secondary institutions that align with their interests. And we use AI in the work that I do. So when we start exploring post-secondary options, I tell them use ChatGPT, put in a really good prompt, and it will help you find programs that you might have not have been able to find on the internet. It will search the internet for you. But then you do need to, once you see those lists, you need to go into each website and see what is it about the program that you like, you don't like. And then I can coach them on picking the right fit and then learning more about those programs. So AI, I think, is going to be in every aspect of every career at some point, and we need to acknowledge that. But as long as there is some human component to whatever they're doing, I think that's really important. And it's not, I can't give you a list of careers that won't be obsolete due to AI. All I can say is pick something that allows a human connection. And then I'll answer one other question here about, here's a really good question. Is it advisable as a parent to encourage your child to seek a STEM pathway? What I would say to that is, um, if they are interested in science, technology, engineering, math, those kinds of fields, if they are interested in it, if they love those subjects, then yes, that's what you are seeing in them, right? And you are then able to ask them questions about what do they like about biology? What do they like about different science courses that they're taking? And then explore. If you want them to do STEM, but they don't show any interest in it, then I would say no. I would say look at what they're interested in and help them see what kind of pathways they can choose. And I think the question, what if there's not something that makes them light up? That just means that you need to ask some more questions. And it doesn't need to be, I think there's this common word that people are using that really can confuse all of us, which is about finding your passion. The word passion can be very misleading. I never use the word passion, I use the word interest. Because if I really think about my own life and my own career, um, I will say that my true passion, which is what I am doing now and doing fully, full time, only came about when I was 49. And it started decades earlier, and I did many things in between that time. So I think it's really important that we just focus on what they're interested in. Okay. One person might be fully interested and it lights them up like my son in the outdoors. And another person, it might be, you know what, I kind of like it. And both of those are valid. And so we're not looking for everyone to have passion and everyone to light up and have this energy, but something that they're interested in, and make it kind of low pressure for them. So I hope that helps with those questions.
All right, thanks, Tasneem. I see two more questions that are related to my blueprint. The first one is about, is the information in the system only at the provincial level, or can it also be seen at the national level? And that's a really great question. So I was showing you how when we were looking at specific occupations, it gave you a snapshot of that information at the province level, like it was for that your student specific province. But I will hop back over. You will be able to get, your teams will be able to get a province by province breakdown. So if I go back to my match results and I'm just going to click into a different occupation over here, or I can click into our arborist occupation. If you click into the Outlook tab, this is where you would be able to get a province by province breakdown of what those job opportunities look like. And if you wanted more information from Stats Canada as well, you could click this information and be brought to our Stats Canada website where you would get a lot more information there. So there is the breakdown per province. All right, I see we have one more question as well. So, would we be able to have our son who graduated high school do my blueprint again? That's a really great question. So, typically, when students are in grade 12, on the top of their My Blueprint accounts, they would have gotten a prompt to change their My Blueprint account email to their personal email. And then that would essentially give them access to My Blueprint forever, essentially beyond graduation. But if your teen was not able to do that during their high school years, but they did have access to my blueprint, I think that this is something that our tech team could support with. So we will be including our support team's email as well. So I think that's something you could definitely email them about and maybe mention, my son graduated high school. This is their name. This is the school they attended. They would like to use my blueprint again. Can you please give them access? And I'm sure they should be able to give access there. And I'll include that support email in our follow-up email as well. Awesome. So Tasneem, I think that is our last question there.
I think so. Yeah,
Oh,
I think we did it all.
awesome. Fabulous. All right. I'll go back over here. So thank you, everyone. We really appreciate you joining us today. This was a lovely hour spent together with you. We really appreciate your engagement and your questions. And we hope you got lots of great learning today. And we really look forward to seeing you all in our second session as well on May 7th. Please keep an eye out on your email for that follow-up. It's going to include our recording today, Tasneem's resource, the My Blueprint resources, as well as the registration page for that second webinar as well. Awesome. And thank you, everyone, and have a great rest of your evening.
Thank you, everyone. It was really nice to see so many parents out here. And so I look forward to seeing you on May 7th.
Yes. All right. Take care. Bye, everyone.